reports are on.
City Commission work session, for September the 9th at 5 o'clock, a little bit after. Roll call, please.
Mayor Litchfield,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Duplantis, Commissioner Moya,
Here.
Commissioner Guerrero,
Here.
Commissioner Arias.
Here.
All right, first thing on the agenda was discussion with Clinton Harding. Is Kathy not on yet?
No, ma'am, she's on.
Oh, okay. Hi, Kathy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Not really.
Let me put the mic on.
Will it be better if I talk like this?
There.
Can you tell?
Yeah.
Okay, I will. Oh, camera. Okay, can you all hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I appreciate the time today. This is just a little update, to try to get us ready and prepare for, capital outlay season. I've had some conversations with, Senator Woods, and, he's actually given me a sheet that he wants me to share with all of our, municipalities and counties and talking about, the capital projects monitoring system. I'm sure that, you're familiar with this sheet. This is basically projects that have had money put into it in the past. And some of them, he wants to make sure that these projects are moving forward. And if any of them need reauthorized, we're going to address that as well. Can we start there? Mark, are you in the room?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you're familiar with this. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we've got the Tucumcari sewer infrastructure improvements that was done in 2020, Tucumcari street improvement, which was in 2021, which we're going to be discussing, and then Tucumcari water storage tanks improvements, which was done with general funds in 19. And you're familiar with those, right?
Yeah.
Of the storage tank, I see that the amount that's been expended on that has been $22,000. Was that for design, or where are we at with that?
That was basically just on some preliminary investigation, as well as tapping into some design. The plan is to go out and rehabilitate the concrete tank. After that's completed, we currently have a contract with an engineer to go out and try to rehabilitate that with some NMFA funds. So that one's pretty much done. Like you mentioned, we had the East Route 66 sewer improvements. That's been utilized to design the project. The money has not been drawn down, but the scope has taken place and design is pending. We're not quite finished with that. And then this year, we were asking to follow up with that East sewer improvements. That way we could actually construct it, or at least phase it out and construct portions of it. Our number one priority, that's the biggest emergency, we were going to use ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan. And that's for a railroad bore underneath the railroad tracks to repair the water line. So that's kind of where we stand. That's the rundown. We've also discussed of having the landfill cell 4 in that ICIP as well, just to be on the lookout to having a top 5, something that we're going to be doing in the coming years. We have our 20-year permit coming up that we have to work with, as well as the design and construction of a new cell 4 within the next 2-3 years.
Design and construction of a new, I'm missing that word right there, say it again.
A cell, CELL, cell for the landfill, opening up a new cell.
Okay. Got it. I just wasn't familiar that they were called cells. So, okay, very good. So of all these monies that have been allocated in the past, and I know that it's a hot topic, do we leave the street improvements alone? Do we re-off that?
So what I've been told, I had our community development department reach out to DFA, and based on the wording of the previous request for streets improvements, they stated it wasn't specific enough to try to use that for a pothole machine or equipment to repair the streets. So we're gonna have to be creative. We're either gonna have to go out and try to reauthorize that, which may be,
The easiest
difficult.
way.
And possible, yes. Or we could bundle that up with the $1 million we just received from NMDOT for streets improvements. That's the only way realistically we'd be able to, make that $300,000 plus stretch out, because as we've been aware with the Second Street project, $300,000 doesn't go very far when it comes to street repairs.
Exactly. What does a pothole fixer take? How much is that?
I'd say roughly around $200,000. Prices have gone up and everything, so just to be, a little bit more conservative to make sure there's enough job, I'd say anywhere from 220 even in that range.
Well, these are all discussions for you guys to tell me, if you want to bundle that with that million and make that go towards street improvements. $1 million is
Not very much.
going to have some kind of impact.
Yeah, it does, but not very much.
Or do you want it re-off to something else?
Actually, to be honest with you, in my part, I think all three are very important. But one of the things is that it's really, really hard in many ways as a commissioner. And in my district, it's real good because we did do all the, actually, we didn't have paving in the old days. It was about the late 80s that we winded up in the city chief doing the streets up there. But there's other parts in the whole city that are crumbling and coming down. And I can understand why people get really upset and angry. So it's a very sensitive topic in many ways, but at the same time, we have to address it because it is concerned by those who live in the city, the residents, the voters. So, something, you're gonna have to, I don't know how you're gonna do it, but you're gonna have to see what you can come up, what type of an idea, because we do have to give something back a little bit all the time, not 100%, maybe a little bit, so that people can start, because not only that, when you have a community like we have here, if you look at the infrastructure in our streets, our draining is very, very poor. So a lot of moisture gets under the asphalt and it decomes quickly if you do not keep the maintenance up. So
Right, roads quickly. I
well,
understand.
it corrodes very quickly. So what we have to look at is also, the fact is that these residents have concerns. And remember, the street is very physically, you can look at it. The other one is a little harder. I know the other ones are very, very important, but we also have to see the other aspect.
Okay.
That's mine.
Mark, could a portion of that 1.5 be used to purchase a new pothole machine?
It's sad that we have one.
Yeah.
I don't care.
We
I'm
lost
gonna
it.
remind you guys. because
Well, I
there is-
know, but you don't have to remind me, I realize.
NMDOT
Well,
reps,
now-
preliminary feedback, sounds like probably not. Typically, NMDOT funds have to go into specific things, sub-base, paving, sidewalks, ADA ramps. But as far as equipment, we have put that request out, but I'm not very optimistic that we'll be allowed to do that.
The American Rescue?
American Rescue is more infrastructure, water, wastewater. That's why the number one priority, I brought this up at a prior meeting, is the railroad board. If we have a leak on the west side of town, a water leak, that could put the entire north side without water. That's why that's number one priority. Next priority, due to large infiltration and other issues we've been having, is the east side sewer improvements. That's number one on the ICIP. I feel we have enough with the American Rescue funds that we're able to knock out that railroad board. I have community development working on that now to get quotes. Because we have that money in hand now. We have about $500,000. We're expected to get the second half in about 12 months. So we have to move on that quickly. That's an emergency situation that has to move now. That's why I felt, just speaking with Alex, the next most important thing is probably the East Route 66, because that does bring in compliance issues with this large amount of rain we had. We went from a typical flow of about 400,000 to 500,000 gallons a day to 3 million. So we have a lot of infiltration. Some of that does come from manhole lids. But a lot of that had clay in it, and we've seen it in the 66 lift station, which tells us it's that clay line we've been talking about for some time now on the east side of town. So that was my determination. That's just suggestions. Ultimately, it's up to the commission what you all want to do, but that's my 2 cents, and I feel that's the priority we should look at. But again, that's just my thoughts. It's up to
EPA steps in, what kind of fines we looking at?
It varies. I just received a nice letter from EPA yesterday about some nitrogen and phosphorus limits, so that's a ongoing topic, but yeah, it's never ending.
But one of the things with EPA, you can also work with them as long as you make an effort, they seem to be more cooperative.
That's true. They've worked well with us in the past.
In the past, so I'm not too worried. I'm worried a little bit, but at the same time, we have to see things for what they are, you know. I think we're in a little struggle financially, but we're getting forward.
That railroad bore, would that take every penny of the American Rescue?
I'm hoping not.
Well,
That's gonna be a large project.
That's a major
So much
project.
when you deal with the railroad, you have to pay their rates, their permit process is expensive to drug out. You also have to have their on-site safety flagman, it's all run through them. We have to go right away to right away, where previously the casing underneath was about 150 feet. Right away to right away, I think it's closer to 300 feet, so that's an increase in cost. We probably go with the HDPE pipe. There's a lot that goes into it, so it's gonna be quite costly. I can't tell
Maybe
you
we
exactly.
can do a trade with them, they can clean up their properties, and we won't fine them for it.
The bad part, there's no negotiating with the railroad.
No,
They're in pockets, and it's like,
well, the biggest problem with the railroad, you have an office in Houston, you have an office in
Omaha.
Omaha, and then you have an office in in Colorado, and then you have one in San Francisco.
Didn't they have one forward?
No, they have them all over, and they don't seem to coordinate, so it's really like a one track. When you're dealing with the right person, you stay on that track, it's not going to deviate from it.
You had mentioned the 20-year permit, is that for the landfill, right? What's the cost on that?
That one was a tough blow. They're saying they're projecting anywhere from about $200,000 to $250,000 just for that.
Hmm.
It's not cheap.
Well, anything you do.
Nothing's
Actually, going under the railroad and fixing that water is going to be important because who knows, it's eventually going to come back. You know, I think it's an old water line that we had quite a while back. I think we worked on it. I don't remember when I was in the commission last time. And that is a very sensitive thing. Once you get the permits and everything, you go do it right away and get it out of the way. Because they have their engineers, they have everything because they have to make sure that they want it quick and out of the way. But we also don't we provide the water for Liberty and it goes through there too.
That's correct.
So you're talking of not only inside the community, but outside.
Correct. If that were to go down, that's gonna affect
The northern
a
side of the county?
lot of people. Yeah.
Well, not only that, if it busts, we're not gonna be able to get the permits right away to go in and do it. We have to get all the okays from,
It'd be out for a while.
and that can just drain water.
We can't have that on our hands. We lose it without water for weeks. That would be bad.
And it can create a lot of problems because now we're liable for the saturation of the water.
So I know when we're talking about that 300,000, there was a couple, so is it two different options we have with that, either coupling it with the 1.5 or the reauthorization, or is that both the same thing?
That's two different things. So with that, it fits within the scope, or it's two different funding agencies, I guess, two different flows of cash that we're able to add it on top of that project. It's just coordinating like we did with Second Street, where there's 9 to, I don't remember how many different funding applications. And what that would be, whatever that scope is, if it's for repair of roads, it'd be specific by for the asphalt. So then you'd use MDOT funds to do the sub-base, sidewalks, ADA ramps. And the reason that that particular area, I don't remember the exact street. I know it's not Rankin, but it's in that general area. It's bad. I've driven it. That particular area was chosen specifically because there's no utility that runs underneath there. When you do that, you chew up half your costs of your funds, just doing utilities, water, wastewater. And, that's why that was chosen, to make that 1.5 million spread out a lot further. So we're trying to be strategic when we do these things. Like I said, it cost nearly $2 million to do the 2 blocks on Second Street. And we're hoping to get twice as many blocks by not having to do the infrastructure underneath. And that's, like I said, again, that's just my proposal, that's my pitch, ultimately it's up to you all what you want to do, but there's a method to my madness, I'm not just throwing things out there, it's been thought of and discussed many times.
Okay, can I add something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't have your ICIP in front of me, so I'm just trying to take notes here. I understand that the priority on, the Route 66 on the east side,
Yes, ma'am.
how much is that totaling right this second?
So they're not finished with design, so as far as the total, in regards to overall construction, I'm not sure at the very moment. That'll have to be phased out over 2-3 years is my assumption. The original plan is if there was enough funds left over from the American Rescue Plan funds, we were going to carry that over to help start construction. KOA lift station was part of that scope, because that's failing, that's creating issues. And then
Right.
just move in from the east side, coming west on that gravity clay line to avoid that infiltration that's causing issues for us at the plant.
One of the conversations that I had with Senator Woods was he and Representative Chatfield and even Senator Campos and these other gentlemen are in these rural areas with lots of towns and lots of space, so there's just not unlimited funds to go around. And he has requested that capital outlay projects come in around the $350,000-400,000 mark instead of the $2 million mark or $1 million mark, because he can't take that much of a chunk for any one in particular project. And so I'm relaying that information to you guys to say, can we look at this in phases as you're discussing and make those outlay projects as something that they could absolutely say, okay, this is your priority. This is absolutely something that we can fund in its entirety, check mark and move on. Is there a way?
Absolutely. So are they looking for more complete projects and get them off the books? Or are they open to the phasing? I mean, because to be
Oh, they're
realistic-
open to the phase, they're open to being able to, whatever works for you. So if there's another project that is down the road that, here's what's happening in some places. They're saying, well, we know that there are other funds that could be used for project X, okay? But meanwhile, we know that we need this pothole filler, okay? That could be used for capital outlay, could be used for that, and you could associate that with a $250,000 capital outlay. And then they would be able to go in there and say, yes, this fits within that budget, up to that 350 kind of range, and check mark, we can buy that with your capital outlay. What they're getting is they're getting a stack of capital outlay requests for projects that are, a lot of them that are coming in $2-3 million, because it doesn't take long to spend $2 and $3 million, and they don't know how to chop it up. So they're asking each of your entities to basically chop it up into pieces for them and tell them what they can do.
Yeah, we could most definitely do that. I could reach out to the engineer and see how far out they are to get a cost estimate. Of course, with inflation, everything's gone up tremendously.
Yep.
But we could at least get a ballpark. That way we could submit that to ICIP and update that.
Okay? Because that's really that's gonna be in your best interest, so that it becomes less of a wish list of here's all of our projects that we know are expensive to reality
Correct.
of what they could go in there and say, yes, this works, this makes our life easier.
And we've had that discussion internally with community development. We were happy. We cut down that list substantially from what it used to be. It was exactly, like you said, a wish list. And we just had to get realistic on what was fundable, what can we knock out, what can we phase, what's the compliance issues. And that's kind of where we're at now with the new ICIP list.
Okay.
So Kathy, if I may on that, so he says he wants, to see a $250,000 to $300,000
Well, no, I said 350 is
Okay.
really was what, 350. They might even look at 4 if there's a necessity for that, but the reality is the 350 mark, yeah.
Okay, so is that gonna be per application or per project on the application, application? Because I know before we've questioned if one item or several items were kind of the way to go with the ICIP application. So is that per application or per project
I'd say overall.
overall?
Well, I think that you could probably, I don't even have that in front of me. Last year you were funded a couple different projects, 2 projects, correct?
One project. The one for the
There was
streets,
just the streets.
just the streets, yes, ma'am.
I would say if you would be comfortable to come in there with one project in that 350 range.
Thank you.
And they could bite that off. Because if the other ones came in so much higher, then they just have to shove it to the side.
Yes.
Yeah, Alex, do you have copies of ICIP? Could you please hand those out, please?
And can somebody email that to me, if you would, please?
Yes, ma'am, we'll get it scanned and emailed to you as soon as we can.
So would the Eastern 66 project, would that be ready for a new phase of?
So it is, by the time these funds are actually released from this next upcoming session, everything will be planned and designed and packaged to go out to bid and be ready to actually start phasing it and construct it. I just need to see exactly if they can streamline that to give me some ballpark on how we can phase this where it's practical and how much each phase would cost. Because typically the ICIP you're looking at, projection, you're looking, the overall project, say it's 1 million, and then you break that out by the years. 5-year plan, and you're okay, we can do this, this, this. And you break it down into phases, because there's no way we would be able to get this through capital outlay in one chunk, it's gonna have to be phased. The city doesn't have the funds to pick that up. And then the American Rescue Plan, like I said, that's already earmarked for that, railroad board, that's the most critical.
So really what we're looking at then is the sewer and then further street repairs, right?
And so if you look, at the handout that Alex just handed out,
Okay.
you have a list. Some of these are on there because for grant opportunities, they have to be part of your ICIP list. So they may not be shovel ready or ready to go, but we have to do that. Landfill South 4 actually got bumped down quite a bit. You have the East Route 66 infrastructure improvements as the number 1 ranking. Repair, upgrade, water and wastewater, that's just general. If something were to come up in emergency throughout the year, we have that pretty vaguely. The summary for that description is vague, that way we could use it for multiple projects. Then we have Monroe and Jackson infrastructure improvements. That's something that we're wanting to do through CDBG in the future. That's between the Route 66 Boulevard and Main Street. Those roads are bad as well. Planning grants for asset management, that's something we've discussed doing through USDA. So again, these are things that need to be listed on our ICIP. And then streets equipment was number 5. It's just not simply doing enough to get the funds to repair the streets. We need the proper equipment so we could go out and try to repair streets as we can for staff. So that's the top 5. Everything else is essentially a wish list or something on there to help for further grant opportunities if other funds become available, just to show that we are looking into it. It is a priority and it's on our ICIP list.
But at this point, what you're telling me is that Route 66 is your number 1 priority, and you can phase it to make it so that it's doable for our legislators.
Yes, ma'am. So the breakdown, just to give you the projections, since you don't have it in front of you yet, the total project cost is estimated to be about $2.4 million. To date, we've had the $318,000 funded. That was for planning and design. And then we show phased out between the years, the amount projected to spend on that. For 2023, there's $723,000. I don't think that's realistic. We could chop that, half of that, and phase that out even further. just to get the most critical part with the lift station completed if we do not have enough of the American Rescue Funds. And then the rest would be filler as needed, whether we have to go out and get a grant for a loan at that time, if it becomes that large of a liability. But the plan is try to get some assistance from the state to get that fixed before that happens.
Do we have any idea what the KOA lift is alone?
I do not, again, that's all out in engineering right now.
Okay.
We've had some kickoff meetings where we discussed priorities, the lay of the land, how we're gonna do it, if it's gonna be pipe burst versus open trench. And based on those discussions, we're now gonna formulate some cost estimates.
Okay. Because that, what will also help is the fact that this is becoming an EPA issue.
Correct.
So that, that has to be looked at as not a desire, but a need.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're all on the same page with that. And we're just gonna have to figure out what the exact number will be in order to phase this. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
And I mean, knowing what we know, I think we could cap that, and just for the sake of time and getting things in, we have a little bit of time still, but we have to get this ICIP, and of course, that's all we have on tonight's agenda. But if 400's our max, we could say, hey, we'll request 400, if we get 300 to 350, we're fine with that. We'll take that and turn that into construction, because this
I
is,
wouldn't do that. I would ask for a specific number,
okay,
okay? Because if you know that you could do it for, if you came in at 325, because these are the specifics of this 325, you see what I mean?
yes,
I think you're gonna be safer, and you give them all the reasons why. We have adjusted this down to make this reasonable in this phase, to complete this phase at this amount.
and we could do that, like I said, I could work with the engineer to get that exact phase that can be accomplished for that ballpark, get a firm number, and get a summary and description of what that would accomplish with those funds.
Exactly.
And maybe add a
Because it
little,
looks like you've done your due diligence, you know what I mean, as opposed to going, well, I think it's gonna be this.
correct.
So
And that's how I can sell it, frankly.
So you would say wait for the final amount to hear back from the engineer what it's gonna cost?
Honestly, yes, yeah. Give me some hard facts as opposed to, well, we're asking for 4, but if you give us 3, okay, so give us some hard facts of what you really need.
Okay.
Got it. For the sake of submitting this ICIP by the deadline though, what's the recommendation on that? Because I may not have that information by, say even tonight, we're adopting the list. That's also the input of the fund where it says for 2023, we're looking at 723,000, but I think we get laughed out of the room if we ask for that amount.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna submit this stuff in January. So how much time do you need?
No, January,
You're gonna take
we should be fine for January, but I'm just worried about how it goes out, at least in the ICIP system. That's what we're discussing, because that has to be submitted by, what is that, next week?
Friday.
I see. I would split it out. I would honestly take your best guess at it, but I wouldn't round it to a $400,000 number.
Well, actually, if you ask for more, it seems like they always give you little, so you wind up with the right number at the end of the day.
Okay, so what we're saying here is round it up, is what you're saying?
No, ask for a little more, because actually sometimes when they come down, that's when you wind up with a closer number that you can work with. I've seen it so many times, especially in capital outlay.
Okay, that's a different school of thought. My school of thought is to take your best educated guess and ask for that in its entirety, because this is what you feel like it really will take.
Yeah,
It's
well, that
I'm
actually,
sure
yeah,
that if
actually, we
yes,
don't
you're right
want to
now.
oversee that part, definitely not, Okay, whatever you think, but I've seen so many times we ask for something, they cut us down and we can't do the project. But go ahead.
Well, I kinda like your
I mean,
thinking of
you've
Kathy.
been in this a long time, sir, so I will do whatever you guys choose.
That's all right. That's all right.
And I guess if we could just make sure that they know that, hey, this is the dollar amount that we need. We're not asking for any more, we're not asking for any less, this is what we need.
Well, they see it on the estimates and also what the engineers and everybody put together in the proposal, because that's part of the,
The package.
package.
Anything else?
Anything else to add, Kathy? I know you have another meeting coming up.
I do, but, no, I think that's great. If you guys, whenever you get an opportunity to send that through, and then I will just, wait for the breakdown. If there's any questions, Mark, I'll contact you.
Perfect, and I'll follow up with you on Monday if that's fine.
That's perfect.
All righty.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all,
Thank you.
commissioners, mayor, thank you.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Okay, so now is discussion regarding RCIP.
Which I know it's two different items, but they're kind of,
Right, kind of.
intertwined, we kind of discussed it already. The main thing was, just, the first agenda item was based on the update from,
Right.
like I said, with Clinton and Kathy, what they had to say were the talk and discussion going back and forth between the representative and, representatives as well, senators in the area, more or less that ballpark, what they're looking at, 3 to 350, maybe 4 if we're able to. And then I kind of gave a quick rundown of what the list is, and the reason behind the ranking for the list. So at this point, I'd stand for any questions, comments. Alex is here representing community development. And if you have any questions of her, that's kind of where we're at.
Actually, we beat this to death already, kind of like, an idea.
We did good. We kind of knocked it out fairly quick.
Yeah.
My only concern is, last year we're fresh and new with the lobbyists there, so I think we learned from our mistakes last year, but I mean, I still think there's some truth in Commissioner Moya's thought of, apply for more, so if we're gonna follow the recommendation again, which I still think is a good recommendation, I kind of find devil's advocate, but if we go for one project and we turn around and we see another community go for 3 or 4 and get funded on all 4 of them, I will be pretty upset.
Oh, I've seen that a lot, and it really bugged me because I seen it, and I said, how in the world do you get so much and we only get a couple of dollars? And they said, well, you don't ask. I said, we do.
Well, I haven't been
Can
here
I
a
say
long time,
something?
Yeah.
but,
So the way that you look at the ICIP, it's not a wish list. These have to be shovel ready. The top 5 have to be shovel ready. You have to have your funding in order before it goes to the capital outlays. And the governor sees it, the people from the legislative see it, and all they're looking at is the top 5. They're not looking at anything else.
Yeah.
So that's why I only highlighted the top 5 for you guys to review. And we can make some changes up until next Friday. If you guys want to make some changes to it, move something up, we have till next Friday to do it. It's due by Friday at 5 o'clock on the 17th.
And Alex has provided y'all the descriptions that go along with those projects, the top 5 that has a narrative, kind of some description on what those projects would be.
I have no problem with what's highlighted. But, over the time frame that I've been a commissioner, every year we've had different advice come from the representatives and the senators, and now our lobbyists, and each time they've been wrong. That's the only thing that has me is one year, we only got to do one. We didn't get that project. Turns out other events caused that. Next year, apply for as many as you can. And of course, they give us the ones that we really didn't need, the bottom of the list.
Right.
The next year, apply for one. We try, it's just every year, the people that are approving this crap is giving us bad advice. And we're not even, and it's like, we're turning around, we're seeing these other communities that are even smaller than us getting a whole lot more money. And they're not even in a situation that we're in. We've got all this information here that says we're shovel ready and all this other stuff. And we're just being overlooked, and we're being overlooked by the people we elected.
That's correct.
And that pisses me off.
That's correct.
But anyway, that's all I gotta say.
Well, I agree. If we ask for 1, we don't get it. If we ask for 3, we get the lowest thing.
And these are the people that advised us
Right.
to do this stuff. Each one of our representatives and our senators have sat there and advised us each year how we should apply for our capital outlay. And then they're the same ones that renege on what they're telling us to do.
And, and I understand that, but I've seen some,
I still stand by the one application, because if you know that's what it is they're pushing, that's what we should get. I know last year we went with multiple applications, like I said, we got the one that was
The least.
the least priority, in my opinion, based on the potential of impact violations. Those are compliance issues.
Well, didn't Kathy and Clinton both last year advise us to go with one big one?
They did, but they said they would entertain what the commission want to do. That's the same as she said tonight. That's
Yeah.
what you want to do, it's up to the commission.
and actually, if you go, you take a big risk when you take one, because if they don't fund you, then you lost everything for the year. And that's what we wind up, I mean, because you don't know what's going on there. It depends who your representatives are, and what committees they sit on, and what, a lot of it depends who is helping you out there. That's what it is, how the connections are. You got a big Primo system, and it works great.
Well,
I see.
and the idea of giving them a hard amount really sits with me well, because the state's struggling just like any other business in the state. They're running low on cash too, so it's gonna be, if we give them a hard dollar amount, say this is what we need, to the penny.
Like Kathy said, it shows we've done our homework, and we're not just asking for a dollar amount. We could prove why we want that dollar amount.
Do we turn in a package like that, showing where we come up with that number?
Oh, yeah, you do.
It's more of a narrative. We could put together proposals we had before. Does the representation really go through there? Maybe, maybe not. That's the job of the lobbyists, to make sure it's clear what we really want, and maybe provide that booklet or proposal to state, this is why this is an issue, and it's their place to sell that. So we just have to be clear on what we want to go after and then have them push it.
Actually, if you look at it, it's a lot of the people who introduced the bills and put it through, and their skill in making sure that you get it funded. Because when I seen what I seen, we traveled for a lot of clinics for 45 years. Amazing enough how you can have one representative, one senator that has a lot of skill in getting things done, and how well that community does. Then you look at another one, and they do very poorly. Because, it's selling, they have to sell your project to whoever it is, and it depends what committee they are. If they're in, like the DOT or whatever, that's where it comes in. And that's key representation.
Well, I have no problem with our priority list.
No.
I don't
Thanks for
either.
the good work, thanks for the hard
Yeah,
work.
We need it, but
I'm just, kind of baffled at how we should go about doing it, because we keep getting told different things.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like anybody that tells us anything is ever right.
I've got one thing. On number 5, it says street equipment. Can't you take some back off to the city? As far as new equipment, no. Like I said, we've reached out to the state, and the latest I've heard, I'm not sure if Mr. Lopez said otherwise, typically those funds go towards the paving itself, for the asphalt, for the sidewalks, ADA ramps, not so much equipment. That seem about right, Ralph?
I missed the first part, Mark, but, on that, legislative you're talking about, or
Yes, sir.
legislative is still up in the air. We put out feelers and they haven't replied to us yet. We think the other one that, I forget, American, there may be a chance on it that we could use it, but I don't know if that helps us as much. So we still have feelers out on the other one though.
I know, when I worked in the county, we got a lot of them like that.
Well, actually, you can get it out of what they call the Army, that comes out of the Army surplus, the federal program. They have it there in Santa Fe, it's in Taringa Road. And actually, the city is registered, and they can go pick up loaders and stuff like that. Some of it is really well maintained, and it's not a big deal, because whoever department's son comes from the veteran, the hospitals, whatever, it comes federally, and then you can get what you want. But if the city has to have the money to pay up front, I'm not up front, but when they bill them, but they have good equipment. They do.
Yeah, there's the surplus, and then there's the hardship auction that we
Yeah.
participate, but all that equipment, it's used and abused, and we spend more money trying to put money into it, fix it, than it's worth.
Well, if you know what you're buying, actually, I've seen that really good stuff that we have, I think we used to use some of it, we no longer do it. Sometimes it's just cylinders are busted if you move it and everything, then cylinders are not that hard to unload and stuff like that. And then a lot of it is not so expensive maintenance, new equipment is very, very expensive. And those are things that we have to watch.
Do we participate in the Army surplus?
We have, it's from all state agencies as well as federal.
Yeah.
And you go out, anything from furniture, from desks to TVs, to printers, to equipment, you name it, they have it there. But again, some of that, you get lucky, and you can pick some things that are really good and small investment to get them up and going. There's some things that they're just lemons. I mean,
But if you really know equipment, and somebody knows equipment, they can know what, they let you test it, they start it for you and everything. Yeah, and what I'm saying is, it is available, and the city's part of it, because we have bought some in the past, and they're still up in town.
Anything else?
no, ma'am.
This will adjourn until time for the commission meeting.
Reporters, please.
Hey, Jimmy sent it all, I have to. This thing wasn't sent the right one, I mean, it is, but not the one.
That's not the one you wanted.
Yeah, it is, but it,